Hey you guys, this is episode 7 of the Sexcapade Chronicles. We are lucky enough to have Dr. Anthony White with us today. It's going to be tons of fun.
He's regretting it already.
Oh, wow.
So we are taking your questions live.
Well, yeah.
So you can text them in. So this is going to be a very fun, interactive show. So if you want to text your questions in right now, or text your questions in right now, you will do that too.
916-692-0766.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about
Sex.
lots and lots about sex. It's all about sex today.
All sex.
On the Sexcapade Chronicles. And this is the man that would know something about that since he has a PhD in counseling and he has written 6 books that involve a lot of self-help. Now yesterday when we talked about self-help on the poll of how often do you have sex, a lot of people wrote in they were upset that self-help didn't mean they were helping themselves sexually.
There's a difference between helping yourself and helping yourself.
So, we apologize that the Facebook only gave us 2 options of how often you have sex. So, a lot of people wrote in and commented on this poll, so let's talk about it. What do you think the number 1 predictor is of how often you have sex is?
One is your environment at home. You know, what are your stressors? And oftentimes, most people don't get a chance to just relax enough to be able to go into that moment. And so they walk out of one situation, especially in a day and time where there are a lot of entrepreneurs. So they work from home. So home is their office. And so there's never a detachment from work and home because it's all in the same place. And so it limits the ability to disconnect. And I think that would be one of the key components to why people aren't having as much.
And then adding in kids.
So
especially kids and an entrepreneur. And
because you're never done. You're never off. And then there's others.
See, this is your office because we come and raid your place.
We are in
my domain. This is
and we're standing very still because we don't know how often she's worked everywhere else.
Alrighty then, I'm quite the porn star.
I sit here all the time.
There's a first for everything, I suppose. So, for those of you who don't know where we filmed this, now you know.
Oh, the studio. If walls could talk.
Oh, that's a very true story. Well, the 2 rules about coming into my place is take off your shoes and we don't talk about what goes on here.
Well, the shoes are off.
But you're seeing what goes on here just a little bit. So, just the tip, as they say.
Oh, okay.
So, Dr. Anthony, has anybody posted any questions yet? Is our Facebook Live working?
Yeah, we have not seen any questions. So, again, text in your questions to 916-692-0766. I will answer all questions, and then I told them, I said, this is like a reverse Oreo right now. and these 2 will chime in. And I'm pretty excited. So let's see what happens. You know, you guys hit me with your best shot. I've answered almost any question you can imagine. It has been thrown at me. So I promise you, if you surprise me, I will buy you coffee. If you surprise me, coffee's on me. You get 1 sip of coffee on me.
Just the tip.
See, there you go again.
It's such a fun world that I live in. This is what we do. Every day, all day. So, let's talk about how often we have sex. Obviously, this apartment has seen some sex. So I have been single, for the last 4.5 years and such, and they've done like studies that people who are married actually have more sex than single people. I beg to differ. But let's ask the married people and the relationship expert.
Well, you have to. It's hard. See, single people say that because they see the they see children, and so they assume that these married couples are having lots of sex because they see they have children and so on and so forth. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of married couples just are tired, and they just don't have the energy. And it's sad that we put more energy into our work than we do into pleasing our mate physically. Because all we think about is once we come home, I got to make groceries, I got to do laundry, I got to take care of the kids. Or the kids, like for me, all my kids are out the house. And so now I gotta work on this budget. I got the next project coming up. What's my next book gonna be? Where am I speaking? What's my next speaking engagement? And so we have a lot of things on the table, and intimacy oftentimes takes the back seat, sadly, to a lot of relationships, because responsibility, in order to have the livelihood that individuals want, seems to take the priority.
So I would be more wealthy if I had less sex.
See, it makes sense because I need to have a business. I need to get more clients. I have to do this. So that is, a lot of my priority is constantly thinking about how to build my business.
So why are people willing to sacrifice that though as part of it? Because for people
to pay bills.
Yeah, we gotta live. We have to live.
Well, apparently, my living is not the same as everyone else's. I'm really sorry to my significant other. He really loves when I talk about this. It makes him sound really good. So when people talk about how often they have sex, what factors play into that though? Keeping that spark alive. I can tell you all the reasons, as a single woman, what I need, and what happens after you have that initial connection and that passion. How do you keep it alive?
Well, the thing is, there's a difference between the actual sex encounter and just the intimate moments. And oftentimes it's the intimate moments that make more, that means more than the actual act itself. Sometimes it's the good morning, the kiss, or the embrace. And it's those simple terms of endearment that you share between each other that allows, when you do have time for that intimate moment, it makes it special. Because if none of that is happening, you're just two roommates who don't even talk. And I think that's the problem, that there's no communication. And
tuning in right now, welcome to this episode 7 of Sexcapade Chronicles. We've been having all sorts of technical difficulties, so if this seems a little bit scattered, it's because it probably is.
Technology is not our friend today.
So we are fortunate enough to have Dr. Anthony White with us today, who can take your questions live. So you can text in anonymously.
916-692-0766.
And once again, that's 916-692-0766. So he is a entrepreneur, business owner, life coach,
author,
6 books under his belt, business help. I have notes up the wazoo here.
I'm really boring, guys. I had nothing to do today but hang around exciting people, so I'm really boring. So I thought I would just chime in, get in where I can fit in this reverse Oreo right now. So
as he has a PhD in counseling, we thought that this would be a great way to kind of bring on our first guest, because you know a lot about relationships, dating, and sex.
Yes. I have 6 children, 7 grandchildren, and oftentimes you'd be surprised what people, people keep telling me you should write a book on some of the things that you go through and your counseling and all of that, but the truth of the matter is, sex is a touchy subject when it comes to people in relationships. No one wants to talk about either how active they are, or we live in a day and time where people are upfront about it, because there was a time years ago where people would lie about their sex life. Guys were like, "Oh man, yeah, I'm getting it all the time." No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
You know what I think is funny? Last night, me and Justin were looking at the poll.
Yeah.
He was saying men are saying they're having sex 3 or 4, 3 times or more a week, and the women aren't.
Yeah.
Now
somebody's lying.
I like this. You guys, there's a lot of viewers on here.
Oh, nice.
This is good. Okay.
Yeah. So if the men are saying they're having sex, 3 and more times a week, and the women are saying they're not, Someone's lying.
Somebody's lying, and you can't count yourself multiple times.
The women were counting battery operated devices. So
it has to have a face and breathing on its own.
I was just gonna say someone is gonna draw a picture on a dildo of a face and put this on there. I can just see my friends right now.
We do not want pictures.
No pictures. Listen, real talk. You guys text in your questions because we want to answer all your questions. 916-692-0766 because we want to address and get you the help that you need.
I need a lot of help, obviously.
We will talk later. I may need a tent or a cot.
I camp out. Since we do this from my apartment and God only knows what goes on here.
Yeah.
So earlier we got cut off when we started our first Facebook Live and we were talking about sexcapades and such and how often people were having sex. So as the only single token person here, I may have sex often. However, we were talking about the reason that
most married couples, truth be told, and it's funny that we're talking about this because I was talking to a group of engaged couples, and one of the things were I said, how many of you all are been in a relationship longer than 2 years? And there, a few of them raised their hand. I said, under 6 months. You've been under 6 months and you're ready to, and you're engaged. And there was the majority of the room. And I said to them, I said, most of you women who said I do as a result of great orgasms. I said, because if the sex was not good, you could not see yourself doing this till death do us part.
That's true.
And so with that being said, you notice the difference between your intimacy as a single person or watch this, even in a long-term relationship, people who live together and they may not be married, but they've lived together, they will notice the lack of sexual interaction between them compared to a couple who both live in separate places, because you start thinking about the responsibilities of making this livelihood work, and other things take the priority over what happens in the bedroom.
Well, my significant other does not live here. He lives in our long distance relationship, as he calls it. He lives in Tahoe.
And so this is why it's working, because you guys are not talking about business. You're not talking about bills. You only have one thing in mind. Listen, we got this amount of time. We're going to do this. And then until we can't do it no more, then I'm going to get on the road and go back home.
So I had a long distance relationship in college. So I was with someone for 6 years. So that's when I was engaged at 19. And I learned to be very independent. So he said to me over the weekend, I was like, I feel really needy right now. He's like, oh, you're only needy in person. You're very independent.
Right.
I mean, when you go home, it's like that independent lady from years. Which was like, I guess true, because you're trying to make the most of the time.
Right. And so there are no other priorities, there are no other options, there are no other distractions that you have, because you only have one goal. That's your only goal. And what's said with that is that's what's the difference between couples and married couples, even same-sex couples. They all have the same situation. They're all in the same situation. There are other priorities that come up. Watch this. Even people who may not have children, but they have what is called fur babies. When your dogs or your cat, when they get sick and something's wrong with them, you got to take them to the vet. And so you have all these other things and components that takes the place of those moments of intimacy.
And I totally agree with that, only from the standpoint of I don't actually, because we were at brunch on Saturday, and it was a beautiful view, and I was sipping champagne, and it was one of the moments I felt like the most joy was just hanging out and actually getting out of our normal routine. So we got out of bed, obviously, to go eat.
You had to re-energize yourself.
Basically, that is a true story. But he had to go to work that night, so it was actually just spending quality time together.
He needed to rest.
Yes, he had to rest after work.
See, that's how I think it is with marriage. I mean, in the beginning, we've been together 7 years, and it was exciting, or doing it all the time, and now it's different.
Yeah.
To me, the intimacy is hanging out on the couch at night and just cuddling.
Right. Because the thing is, you're realizing you find a new respect for the presence of that person. And sometimes it's just a conversation. Sometimes it's the simple things like hello and knowing that they care, because truth be told, oftentimes when you're in it and it's sex, you're not really talking to sharing how much passion you feel towards each other, and there's none of that communication. There's a lot of heavy breathing and so on and so forth, but there's no one's ever talking about, wow, your eyes look really blue right now. No, we're not. From a man's point of view, we're not thinking that. And I think from a woman's point of view, she wants to know that if we're not in bed, can you communicate with me? Can you make love to me emotionally without the physical?
Right. We talked about this. That's where we did the love languages, and that's so true. Like, I think that I talk to him an hour and a half every night, basically. So all week long we may communicate.
It's funny because even though me and Justin live together, we don't spend that much time talking because we have the kids, we have 4-H, we have track and field, he plays softball. I'm in Modesto half the week working, so we don't even talk that.
I know, and that's like the conversations that we have, like, being able to say, okay, so I may, go do what I do all weekend long, and you might not see these social media posts because I'm busy doing other things, but during the week, I really do spend an hour and a half to 2 hours, talking to him and, building that relationship when we're not there.
Right.
And that works better for me in a lot of ways, because when you are in it every day, that person is not the priority they are.
I look at it, people who live in LA aren't excited about Disneyland.
I'm always excited about Disneyland. I had season pass.
But for the majority of the people who are there, they don't care about Disneyland.
Right.
It's we see it all the time.
Right. I get excited because it's maybe once a year, once every 2 years.
And so people come from all around the world to celebrate what's in your backyard.
I like that ride, I guess.
Yes.
I like rides. I went every week for years.
It's a small world.
my gay roommate worked on that ride, and he told me all the places you can have sex in Disneyland. Just another different turn, but anyways.
That was last week's podcast.
And I think the thing is, when you become so familiar with someone, sometimes you just overlook and you forget to appreciate what's right in front of you. Again, you don't miss the water till the well runs dry. And oftentimes, we miss that. We miss having that person in front of us. And I think the problem with most men, we start looking elsewhere and not realizing you have that at home. It's at home. It's laying next to you. It's right there. And we're like, I see guys all the time, man, I'm thinking, man, your wife is bad too. I said, and I told the one guy, I said, do you know right now somebody else is looking at your wife the same way you're looking at that woman?
True.
And he was like, wait, well, I was like, yeah. Now, I said, oh, why are you mad now? Don't get mad now. I said, because in somebody else's mind, they're doing to your wife what you're doing to her in your mind. And nobody thinks of it like that.
They take it for granted. I think, and it's like one of those things, if you just worked at that, you could get that with your relationship as well.
Yeah.
And I think that, you guys, for those watching on Facebook Live, please text in your questions to 916-692-0766.
We are waiting for your questions. Don't send them on Facebook Live. Send them directly here.
So, because we can't see them directly live from Facebook Live at the moment, so I can see a lot of you guys are watching though and are like, oh my God, Jen. Okay, so continuing on. So it's 916-692-0766. We will not reveal your identity, but make sure that you continue to send the questions in. So when you say that you have it right there and people take that for granted, what is that exactly? How do you change the dynamic?
You change the dynamic simply by just stepping back and take a moment to realize what would your life be like without them. And that's a harsh reality. A good friend of mine, he lost his wife due to cancer. And he said, when he got up to speak to do the eulogy, he says, I'm looking at the best 16 years of my life laid before me. And at that moment, he says, every couple that's here, don't wait till you're at this moment right now to appreciate what you have. And I think we lose focus of that tomorrow is not guaranteed.
Right.
And when you have this person that you've committed your life to, don't forget to say, thank you for being here in my life. Don't forget to say the I love yous, because, when they're gone, you can't rewind a missed opportunity. Like one of my quotes is, you just can't rewind a missed opportunity. No matter how you try, no matter what you think you can do, when it's all said and done,
But you don't think about it. When you're waking up next to the same person every morning and falling asleep with the same person every night, you're not thinking, what if they're not here?
Right. What if tomorrow never comes for one of them?
Well, I mean, having been sick and in a relationship, like when I had my hysterectomy and all the complications, and my significant other didn't feel like that, even though, I almost died several times during that 6-month period of having surgery. And I should have known at that point, that this person wasn't for me, because he didn't have that panic. He was cheating on me while I was at the hospital.
Right.
And, I didn't really think about that part. He was just okay, hopefully you get better.
Right.
And see, those are people who, they're more in love with themselves than they are with the person. That's what I call a narcissist. That's a narcissist.
He's a sociopath, yes.
Yeah, because he's more in love with himself, and those, they're dangerous people to be around. Because what he showed you were, if your life was in danger, protecting you is not my priority. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous.
Even with Justin, when I was in the hospital with meningitis beginning of March, he brought me to the ER for the 3rd time, because I was the second time I was like, I'm fine, I'm going home, and then by the 3rd time they're like, we're just keeping you.
Yeah.
He didn't even run home to grab underwear, grab a phone charger. He was not leaving my side.
Those things weren't important. The thing is, the woman that I love right now, if I leave, what if something happens and I don't get one more I love you? What if something happens and I don't get that, get to look into her eyes and tell her how much she needs, to explain to her that she's my exhale to my inhale, that my breathing doesn't exist without her. If those things don't happen, we take it for granted. And so it's important that, we all want to have a good sex life and all that good stuff, which is very important. But when it's all said and done, it's the simple things, just being there. Not just physically, but emotionally being there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people take for granted. Guys say it all the time, well, I'm here, and I'm going to lose my man card because I'm just going to bust a bunch of these things out. Men, we say stupid stuff like, I don't have to tell you I love you, I'm here, right?
Okay, but with my husband, he doesn't, so my kids ask why we don't say I love you when we get off the phone. Because it's kind of forced.
Right.
We don't have to say I love you every time we hang up the phone.
Right.
We hopefully show it every day. It
should be an action. Matter of fact, I tell this story every day. This husband and wife, every day they would send put a little post note on on each other's lunch bag or their briefcase, and it said smiley every day, smiley. And so the kids for years thought that was their nickname for each other, Smiley. And so if the father had passed away and the mom stepped up to the casket, looked in, and she put a little note and said Smiley. And then they closed the casket when they went on. And so they're at the repast. And I don't want you guys to get all emotional.
Oh my God. I don't know if I like this.
And the kid's like, Mom, for years, we saw you and Dad say, leave these notes that said smiling. And they're like, what does that mean? She says, it meant see how much I love you.
Aww.
And it wasn't in the words, but it was in the actions and what we say to each other and what we share with each other. And my love for you should be visible more than it is heard audibly.
That's so true. I think that, yesterday was my first note left next to the bed ever. I'm really serious about this.
High five for you.
Exactly. Obviously I didn't just have sex. He did leave me money though. But it's
oh my God!
No, but he did.
Oh my God!
No, I knew that was.
You just took this a whole nother.
He left money because he made me eat gluten-free pizza.
Yeah.
He owes you money.
Exactly. So he left me the. No, I was so serious. It was so awful.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say the amount of money.
That was an expensive piece of pizza, wasn't it?
He's he's gonna really appreciate my value.
You are beat red right now.
I am red. Because I have a lot of things. But, I had an offer actually to have sex for money with an NBA player and a baseball player on Sunday. And I could not get out of there fast enough. So, that's why I'm getting red, because, that really did happen. I was offered such activities. So, this is just my life as a person.
Coupons out or something?
I have a fan club. It's a special event, so, but he did, nonetheless, we'll get over with.
Well, we just flew back that emotional story real quick, didn't we? We don't have to cheers to what?
Shining money next to the bed. Okay, so, because these are the things I do with my life.
The cost of gluten pizza.
God, it was so horrible. I was
I want money after that too.
Yeah. Exactly, and I threw a shit fit that I had to pay for it because he didn't have any money at the time. So it was a really nice gesture with a note, saying I really enjoyed our whole weekend. Here's money for that pizza. But
Watch this. The pizza.
That's the ending. That was me dying all night long. I was so sick all night long.
So much for extra cheese.
I think because I was up all night so sick from it that he felt guilty. I was dying.
From the pizza, right?
Yes, from the pizza. I don't know. Don't eat a straw hat. It was a straw hat at Harvey's. Do not eat that pizza when they're closing, especially. No. It was not a good experience. So,
ladies and gentlemen, please text us in your questions. 916-692-0766 to rescue her and continue to share with us, her pizza incidents, because this is, and those of you on Facebook Live, look, text us in. I want to see your messages. I want to see your questions because we want to answer. Give us your comments because again, we can't read them off of Facebook Live because the way we're set up right now. But
I'm pretty red. Can you guys see that? Please text about my current coloring and how I sound. I'm going to be losing my teaching credentials apparently. So texting you guys 916-692-0766. Please don't ask about how much money was left next to that. That's one of the questions.
I think we should talk about how to spice it up.
Yes.
Because once you're married for a while and things get I don't want to say boring because it's not to me.
It becomes
it's kind of the same. You need to spice it up a little bit.
It becomes a ritual. It becomes ritualistic. And I think simple things that women, I think, enjoy that most men don't even consider is a foot rub.
Oh, not me. Don't touch my feet.
See?
I will not get a foot massage. I will not get... he can rub my back, but I don't I will never go get a massage somewhere. Yeah. I'm not paying someone to rub my body.
But you know what? Here's the thing, and I'm glad only one of us can chime in on this conversation. Somebody gluten-free pizza, rub on. No, but I'm glad you brought that up because most men treat the woman that they're with, in comparison to the woman that they were with prior. And so whatever pleased that woman, they thought they were knocking it out of the park with this woman prior.
Right.
And so now they're with you and they're huffing and puffing and wondering how come it's not working. And because they thought, hey, this always works.
I'll give a foot massage and
and she's like, no.
And touch my feet.
Yeah. And now he's lost because all he knows is he's only as good as he was with the woman prior to him, prior to you. And so now, he's frustrated because he doesn't want to feel like he's a novice. Because in his mind, he's been knocking it out the park for years, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, you've been playing in the minor league park. You're in the majors here, buddy. And you're hitting foul balls right now.
Right. Well, my dude just got recently divorced after 15 years. You've been married more than once, as of you. Yeah. So you have to learn a new skill set, with each person you're with, and I think you have to be open, right?
You have to be open, but at the same time, there's communication before the act is act. What do you like? And oftentimes that's a hard conversation because no one wants to say what they like without expressing. How did you learn that you like that? Yeah.
Then it kind of brings up
I
the
said-
past.
Yeah.
Well,
You know.
do you want to know what my answer is? I'm making him blush, see?
Yeah.
You only get good at things you practice a lot, right?
Well, you know what? And you know, it's funny that you say that because I had a client and she hadn't had an orgasm and they had been married 10 years. And the problem was, I said to her, I said, you can't expect him to do something for you that you've not done for yourself. And I said, that's like me getting mad at my GPS because for not working. If I don't put in the
Right.
destination,
Right.
then it can never guide me where I needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you can't expect for him to know you better than you know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that we have this communication. And what turns you on? Watch this, Betty. What turns you off? And I think that's the question that no one asks in a relationship when they're about to be intimate. We just want to jump in and, you know, we're just going to we want to feel our way through. And we're like, oh, this is working. We're going to stay right here. And you're like, no. And just because she's saying, ooh, she's like, ooh. And there's a difference between ooh and oh. And, you know, and most people don't. And men, we don't listen. We don't listen. We just glad to be in the pool. We just swimming away. We just glad to be there.
Well, if it's a pool, it's
Yeah.
like at least you're doing something, right?
Well, not necessarily. Because sometimes, you know, women can get there on their own, and you know, we're thinking, and it's us that you're like, no, I was thinking about somebody else. Because when it's all said and done, it's more mental than it is physical for the woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is more mental because she can zone out and go somewhere else, and you think it's all about you. Like, yeah, no, she was last year's New Year's Eve party before she met you.
You think you're doing it right, and she's somewhere else.
Yeah, she's somewhere else.
So, like, women being able to, like, kind of check out, like, that's, like, the porn, like, when we did, like, the questions about, like, porn in the bedroom. I don't think, like, women need porn necessarily in the bedroom because we can replay because, like, we're so visual in our
Okay,
mind.
so I have a question. So do men not do that?
What?
There's no highlight reel?
Like, because a woman, we can just go somewhere else. Are men more present in what's going on?
No, because we know when you've checked out. And so
Okay. If the guy is paying attention.
if he's paying attention, we know that you've checked out, and it becomes selfish. And this is where I think more relationships fall apart because she knows that she's checked out, and she's in tune and knows that he knows that she's checked out. So now she's wondering, who is he thinking about in this checked out moment? You know, because if you've checked out, if both of you are checked out, it just doesn't work.
Right.
But if it's working for one person and the other person's checked out, now you wonder where's your thoughts at? Because you're not thinking about me. You know, so you know where are we? How is this working?
Right.
And I think that's the problem because when one checks out, that means there's some selfishness going on here. You know,
Right.
even when the guy checks out or the woman checks out and she's on, he can tell because she won't look at him. You know, and she won't call his name. You know, it's baby, and it's you. And you know, I'm like Destiny's Child, say my name, say my name.
So the fact that I have my eyes closed all the time.
And you're looking somewhere, and you're like, man, we need to paint the ceiling. You know,
Like grocery list.
right. And so there are other things, and it goes back to that because, you know, how do you keep it fresh? And let's go back to, you know, how do you keep that spark? And it's, again, communication. Tell me what you like. Tell me, you know, and there are so many women who have been a victim, but that they've been molested as a child and all these other things that have happened that they've suppressed that, you know, when it comes to that, they, you know, they'll limit themselves to how much they want to expose to because they don't want to feel weirded out. They don't want to feel any of these.
That's like looking up into the corner right now. Obviously, I have been the victim of assaults and such. So.
And the thing, and it affects your intimacy level.
That's what my therapist says.
Yeah.
Yeah, because both of us have been victims of trauma
Right.
in such areas.
And the wrong setting and the wrong environment can give you a flashback and messes everything up. And if that's never addressed, then, how will he know until all of a sudden you're in this situation? He's like, what do you mean? What did I do? And now you're forced to tell him it wasn't you, but it just reminded me of something I went through. And no one's ever wanted, now he's forced to be a therapist in a sense, and he's not prepared for that. He's just here for the playground. And, now he has to be Dr. Phil, and he was never prepared for any of that.
See, I try not to talk about it because I think they won't want to have sex with me, to be honest, because I carried around the guilt and shame of all of that for such a long time that I always felt like it made me broken. And so that was something I wouldn't share. And we talked a lot about this, like, during the podcast and, like, off air. And, speaking about it, it's difficult for me as I look off into space, as he's talking about it. Being a victim or a survivor of an assault, and then having to be in a relationship, that's why I haven't been in a relationship, because I had to heal. Right. And you have to heal those wounds so it's not taken out on another person, which I think, was really difficult for me to accept because I was always a person that loved sex.
Right.
And when someone hurts you in that way, the trust you have to kind of reestablish with the people when you bring them into the bedroom. Isn't it difficult?
Well, this is why I did, when I talk about intimacy, it's not just the sexual act, but the intimacy is saying, see into me. See my fears, my failures, and my flaws. I'm going to open myself up in a vulnerable position, and I'm going to trust you not to hurt me when I open up. And I think that's the problem. No one's really opening up. We're having action without intimacy.
I totally agree. I think that we can detach in a way. Because that's what...
it's survivor mode.
Yeah, and I think that, people don't talk about that. It's like, 1 in 2 women have been sexually assaulted in their life at least once. We've been victims more than once. So...
And you'd be surprised to the amount of men that have been assaulted as children and will never address it because of the shame that comes with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I think it's harder for men to come forward.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be the strong ones, and women are the weaker ones. We go through that. Men don't.
Yeah. Well, we say that they don't, but the truth of the matter is, there's always been some type of cousin or an uncle or an auntie who have done something, and you try and suppress it because you don't want to again feel like the weak one, and you don't want to carry that shame or even expose someone else's situation because it's just that's just how they were.
Yeah. And when I volunteered to, talk about my trauma at World Mental Health Matters Day last year, I was like, holy shit, I'm going to have to say how fucked up I am and this what's happened to me. And it's taken me almost a year to get to that place where I can even talk about it, and say that this happened because of the guilt and the shame and feeling like I have no worth, how did I let this happen?
Right.
These are choices I made versus seeing that people took advantage or exploited and that I'm doing the best I can given the amount of trauma that I've endured over a lifetime. But sharing that story makes other people feel less alone, which is how we've bonded a lot.
Right. I mean, you were the one that, because it was my husband who was like, maybe you should see a therapist. And I was like, whatever, I'm fine, but okay. And then I go see her, and I was like, I got some problems going on up in there.
And it's the things that we've suppressed that, and you become a powder keg.
Right, and I was like, no, it's normal, and whatever happened in the past doesn't matter, doesn't affect me, and it does. And then we meet, and I'm like,
it's not just me. Welcome to the club.
I told you never get out. Once you remember, it's a club, PTSD club.
You're like, there's a clubhouse?
There is, actually. Because it's one of those things that you find camaraderie in it, because you're not the only one. Right. And, yesterday, I was telling me, my doctor was like, Jen, people think that PTSD, you're going to, fix it. And he's like, you learn to cope with it. And that's very true, and I think that's really hard as, someone that doesn't like to accept that they can't get all better. But you learn to be able to help other people and figure out how to deal with that pain.
Right.
In a positive way, because what else are you either going to survive and help others or you're going to perish. Right. And so many people don't talk about the pain and struggle of living with PTSD because it's for various reasons, some sort of traumatic event. We were talking about this last week. Right.
And oftentimes you don't realize that traumatic experience that you have. Most people try and suppress it and forget about it. But you have to embrace that this is your new reality now. Now, if you don't learn from this, it will literally destroy you. And I posted this quote. I said, if you're complaining about the valley, the mountain's going to destroy you. You know, because if you don't deal with it where you are right now, when it grows, because when you're silent, your silence feeds it. And then when you do begin to talk about it, it's so big that it just becomes overwhelming. Deal with it in its infancy and control this situation. As soon as it happens, let's deal with it now. Let's cut the head off and figure out how to make this work. Because the longer you let it fester and marinate,
I mean, as the worst case of complex PTSD that the trauma center have never seen, I agree with you, and I tell people this all the time now. If I would have known what I was doing to myself by not talking about it and keeping it all in and keeping all those emotions, I would never have ever gone that path, and I would have tried to figure out how to deal with the guilt and shame versus sucking it up and having the military mentality of like push it down, keep going forward, because the ramifications now of how it's changed my life and all these things that I've had to give up or have been taken from me because I didn't deal with it are catastrophic in a lot of ways. And people don't know like how much you have to lose until you can't function anymore. And I think that having the support, as we talked about, is like vital, and knowing you're not alone.
right.
See, as a teenager, I didn't deal with anything, so I was drinking to the point where I was blacking out because I didn't know how to cope with anything, and that was my way of dealing.
Coping, yeah.
I'm just gonna drink until I remember nothing.
Well, people think I'm a party girl. Maybe this explains, my love to go out and have fun because maybe I don't want to live in the fucking hell that's my mind.
Yeah, because your reality sucks.
Yeah, my reality does suck, and like that it did for a really long time. So when I had my moment of happiness at the buffet,
At the buffet,
with champagne, it was like the first time though, because I had never actually known what happiness was, and I really hate to have to say that out loud, but I was always in so much pain that I never knew what the other side of that was. And I wrote to myself over and over when I was at the worst, like on the other side of pain is faith, the ability to love, and the ability to help others. And so if you can get to that place and be like, okay, I've been at my worst, but now I know what it's like to be at my best. It's kind of like one of those transformational moments where, you can keep going even though it doesn't always feel good.
Right.
And we talked about your experience. You talked about like when you're in the car accident.
I was in a car accident a few years ago, and we were on exiting the freeway off of the 80, and a big 18-wheeler fishtail and hit the side of our car and knocked us over into the other lane, and did major damage to the car, and yeah, I was hurt a little bit, but it didn't really affect me as much until we were driving on the freeway, and I was in the passenger seat. I was reading something, and I looked up, and I was next to an 18-wheel, and I tensed up.
Right.
And it kept happening, and I was like, wait a minute, this is PTSD. And I said, I'm affected by being on the side of an 18-wheeler. If we're not turning, but the possibilities of what has once happened created my new reality.
Right.
And that new reality is, how do I deal with this? How do I, and it's not, you don't have to necessarily be in a war zone or necessarily have been abused, but it could have been something that may have happened in your life that causes you to tense up until that episode at that moment passed. And what PTSD will do if you don't address it, it takes a moment and you turn it into a monument. And because it's never been addressed. And so I had to sit down and I had to talk to someone. I said, hey, this sucks. I don't like feeling like this when I'm next to an 18-wheeler. No, I wasn't abused. And and here's something interesting. I've never drank. I couldn't tell you what alcohol tastes like, but I know you guys are like, what?
And they offered everyone a cocktail this morning.
and I think, but let me tell you why. And growing up, my mother was an alcoholic. I watched my mother go through a gallon of brandy a day. And then when she got on she had injured her back, she was taking Vicodin, so she's taking Vicodin and Brandy, every morning. And I've seen her come up to my high school intoxicated. I'm like a sophomore in high school.
Oh, man.
And so, and then everyone on my mother's side of the family were alcoholics. And two of my uncles were killed regarding alcohol. And I'm like, that's never going to be me. Listen, I'm too funny the way I am right now. And I enjoy, listen, I will ruin your high. Trust me, my friends would come over in college. They were like, Anthony, you're messing up my high. I'm like, come on, guys, come on. They're like, how is it that you're like this? We got to drink to get where you are. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And that's just me.
Well, I always said, like, I'm this ridiculous motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, this is fine. I'm the good, the bad, the well.
Yeah.
Like, here we are. Like, but you said this something to me the other day. It's like, you're, like, this really, really carried me into the weekend. Like, if you have that soul, it's that light, it can't be extinguished.
You can't, you have to have something within you that, and I think the thing is, most people live to be happy. And I shared this with, and when I said this to a group I was speaking to, I said, I never want you guys to just settle for happiness. And they were like, dude, what? And I said, please understand. I said, happiness is a temporary reaction. I said, you're happy because something happened. You're happy. And I said, now understand this. You become unhappy because something happens. I said, but internally, joy is continuous. Regardless of circumstances or dilemmas, you have to find that joy within yourself. And find that thing that causes you to just inhale and exhale and say, today, I'm going to inhale and exhale today because if I keep breathing, I'm one breath closer to my destiny. I'm one breath closer to my purpose. And ignite that joy within, because just like fire is ignited by breath, by air, same thing.
I'm tattooed on me, breathe.
And same thing, just breathe. And, regardless of, we put so much pressure on relationships and having the best perfect relationships and making sure that everyone's happy. And the thing is, everybody's not going to be happy, because you wake up and you're like, man, your breath smells like hot garbage today. And, like who died in your mouth, and
I'm going to eat an outside with that.
And the thing is, there's a joy within yourself that causes you to just go, you're like, hey, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the conversation.
I know. I'm like, oh, should we look at these?
Yeah.
but I really think that there's something to that, though, because, like, joy, like, when I was saying, like, I actually knew what happiness was, is only because, like, I actually was authentically living my life now. Like, putting it out there, I am this fucked up person that is doing the best I can.
Yeah, being honest with yourself.
And I think that's the problem with most of us. We're not honest with ourselves. And it's easy for us to blame someone else. I'm not happy because they did. And I always ask, what was your part in this? I said, there are two people in this story right now. There's you and them. And they can only play half the role. And I will never blame someone for being abused, because I will never say, what was your part in this because you're abused? No. But if there was something where the two of you equally contributed to the chaos, man up to your side.
Yeah. Take ownership of it, I think.
Please.
So I think that, like, people have been afraid by me my entire life because of my ability to do that. Because when you are abused as a child and such, you overcompensate by taking on all the responsibility. And so having to learn whose fault it actually is boundaries and setting limits. And when you get better at that, people get really mad when you say no.
Oh yes.
And not no in, like, the bedroom, like, no in life. Like, no, I can't do that for you. No, I don't have that kind of time. No, I can't emotionally be there for you. Like, setting those emotional boundaries. Like, I always ask you when I call you, like, are you in a place where you can deal with this right now? Because I respect you and know what it's like to...
And be okay with the no when you get it. Be okay with that, because you're giving them an option. Can you, yes or no? And when they say no, like, but why? You know,
because it's like, but that's why you have support. Like, that's where the PTSD support part comes in. Because for a long time, I would always put it on one person, the person I was dating. Now you need to spread the wealth.
Everybody's getting some of this.
Basically, but that's the way we all do that for one another, though. And having that kind of support actually does take off the burden off your significant other.
Yes.
Because then you can have those moments of like contentment and like joy and such, because you're not just living in the fucked upness that is your reality.
You're not dumping all your shit on one person.
Right.
And then expecting to be intimate.
Exactly.
Right. Now, yeah. And because I mean, the way you said that, imagine doing that. You know, everything is on your bed, and then you're like, come on, baby, come lay in this with me. and just that image, you're like, oh. You know, I mean, and that's the truth of the matter. And this is one of the things that my wife and I, we don't have serious discussions in our bedroom. You know, it doesn't go. And if it's a real serious situation, we don't even talk about it in the house.
Yeah, being able to leave
because you don't want to contaminate your atmosphere, your environment. You don't want to contaminate your sanctuary.
So that's why we need to sage my place apparently more often, because we do talk about all
you need a sage plant. You need to just start this. You need a garden.
I live in the garden. It looks like a garden outside. But like when you talk about trauma and bringing it to the bedroom and all that stuff, like the only way I learned to communicate and figure out how to do my speech 2 months ago was I started writing it out, and I would call when we talked on the phone. I'm like, so I'm going to tell you today a story.
Right.
But it was on the phone. I didn't have to look at him. So to me, I was able to start to communicate, and the more I said it, the more we did the podcast, it got easier and easier. And he watches these. He loves it. He's like, I learned so much about you today, and I feel like I know you. I'm like, well, I don't have to tell you that. Great.
And see, that's why you guys can just have what you have and when you get there.
Exactly.
Because you really don't have to communicate.
I mean, basically, he watches these and he's like, I feel like I know how your week's going, how you feel about me.
If I'm in trouble.
Exactly.
What I need to do or not do.
If our relationship is fluid today. And I'm irritated from the night before talking about the money on the bed.
We won't be having that pizza.
Not today. We'll see Friday because he's going to come on here with us.
So Justin, if you're watching,
you will be here too. So we'll play I Have Never with him. Because we played this before and it wasn't as fun without my significant other. So you guys all see who this wonderful individual that signs up for is. Thank you guys so much for all your questions and writing in. We're so grateful. If you want to learn more, find Anthony. How do we do that?
You can find me on, my website is dranthonywhite.com. I'm on Instagram at DrAnthonyW, Snapchat DrAnthonyW, Dr. Anthony White on Facebook, Smoke Signal, DrAnthonyWhite, Twitter.
He's at Starbucks a lot.
Starbucks. You know what's bad? I'm going to start where the district manager knows me.
You gotta get out of your house though. You do. If you're a business
really
owner.
smart.
You know, because like I make her come over and we leave here. So other than filming, we try not to be in my apartment.
But my thing is in here. If you guys really want, seriously, I'm an open book, and you can text me, call me, 916-692-0766. I would love to just share with you, give you some tools, and I'll give you a 30-minute free consultation to anyone that calls. And we'll make it happen. See how we can help make a difference in your life.
He will make a difference in your life. He's already made a difference in ours. And so we will link all of your info in the comments, and we're going to share this. Thank you so much for being a guest on Sexcapade Chronicles.
This was amazing. And God, I feel sorry for the guys. Guys, I'm sorry for you.
I'm still trying to make plans. He's like, I can't go.
Oh, Justin's watching.
Hey, Friday.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much. We had such a great time. Until next time.
Bye-bye.